hey, it's time for your annual review. We'd like to give you a raise.
What's up, guys? Chris Work here from ProfitDig. I'm here this evening with Jeff Spencer, Jeff Givens. What's going on, fellas?
Not much. How are you?
Man, doing good. Doing good.
I'm living the good life.
Hey, can't complain. Can't complain. Check us out, ProfitDig.com. Like, comment, let us know what you want to talk about. We're here. It's the construction show, the ProfitDig. No. What's this?
ProfitDig Construction Show.
ProfitDig Construction Show.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a hot minute since we've had a new episode. So,
Yeah,
I forgot what it was called. So,
Yeah,
we're back, baby.
And a couple trips.
I know, yeah. And we're going into vacation period. So
Yep.
You got vacation again?
I got a vacation coming up, a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, I put in for it a long time ago.
I think I need to talk to our manager. All right.
Where's HR? My God.
Yeah.
We're going to work this out. No, but appreciate you guys joining us this evening. We were talking about some good stuff earlier, just in regards to incentives, pay incentives, that
Right.
is, across employees, divisions. How do you handle that? Like you said, Jeff, is this a vacuum technique? If it isn't, what is the approach? And Jeff Spencer, I know you've dealt with some of that. So
Yeah, we have, and it's one of those things. When you start talking about pay raises and stuff, you kind of cringe a little bit. And, especially as an owner or a project manager or somebody in management position, it's like it's almost like recreating the wheel when it comes time for evaluation on your employees. How much is this going to cost us across the board?
Right.
How are we going to make this up? What are we going to do with it? And that's what a lot of people, especially like in a smaller business, they don't think about issues like, hey, if I want to treat my employees good, but I don't really want to bump their pay up too much, because if I do, I may have trouble picking up jobs in the future.
You have to increase your bids.
You got to increase your bids, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't think of it in that way. A lot of people, they just like, I need to give my guys a raise. I'm going to give them, excuse me, X amount this year, for a raise. And then all of a sudden, they do it for a couple of years in a row. We're giving minimum raises, and then all of a sudden, they're struggling. Their profit margin starts to drop. They may not realize, well, they're labor bound. They've got to where they've got so much money into their labor and have not compensated for it in their bid proposals or in the cost of their business that, now they're stuck. They're not really stuck, but they don't know what to do. They're losing money in 9 times out of 10. It's because they have tried to be good to their employees. They give them raises, but haven't figured out some way to compensate that and get it back.
So what do we do? How do you fix that?
Well, you have to be able to, if you're going to give your guys raises, which I believe in 100%, because when you look at inflation right now is 6 to 7% on average, and maybe more.
Yeah.
And,
It's tough.
it is. And so, you've got to be able to give your guys some kind of incentives to help them to compensate and be able to make that money they need to survive in today's world, to be able to support a family, put food on the table.
Absolutely.
And not just make it. Like, you want to well compensate your employees.
Right, exactly.
Especially if they're good employees.
Yeah, and you want them to stay with you. You don't want to have a big turnover, in your labor force. You want to be able to have guys. It makes me proud to say, hey, these guys that work for me, they've been here for 15, some of them 20 years. And that says a lot for the company I work for, and says a lot for the guys and what kind of job they do. But you've got to raise your labor rates on your bids when you give raises across the board. We try to do like our evaluations at a certain time every year for our employees, because that way you're not changing your labor rate 7, 8, 9 times throughout the year every time you give a raise to 1 or 2, so that way you kind of know where you're going to be come next year.
And quick question, is there something to like doing that? Do you do that in a slower period where you sort of aren't as busy and you kind of have an opportunity to put a little more thought into, okay, where are my MVPs? who am I really looking to compensate? And is there also, is that like a byproduct of like their evaluation when things
Kinda.
aren't as
Kind of, but I mean, we do ours at a certain, we've got a 2-month span there. We try to work it in every year. And I just say it's between June and July. That's when we try to do our evaluations. And that's a busy time for us because it's usually pretty dry. We're working outside, so, we usually got some pretty good working conditions. But once that's done, then what I do periodically is like every quarter, I'll try to prepare for next year. I'll start bumping my labor rates on my bid proposal. I'll start easing them in, like I may add another 5%, 2.5%, whatever it may be, for the next 3 months. And then on the 4th month, I'll bump it up again. Then I go 3 or 4 months and I bump it up again. Then when I get to the time to do evaluation, I have got 60 to maybe 80% of upcoming raises already compensated for on my bid proposals.
right?
So the guys that I'm bidding to, my customers and stuff, they're already accustomed to seeing, if my bid goes up, 1.5%, 2% on similar jobs, they're like, well, they're pretty close to what they normally are,
Yeah.
So,
You're right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then when all of a sudden, if you take that big hike, and then you start getting to where you can't pick up work. And we did give some raises a while back, that were kind of elevated. But we had to keep our employees and stuff. It was hard to find help, and we didn't want to lose our help. And other people was making offers to our guys to steal them away from us.
Yeah.
So I told them, I'm like, I'm gonna give y'all the raises and stuff, what you're asking for. I said, but I can't pick up any work, and I did. We done this for about 4 months and didn't pick up a single job, and it was because we had raised our labor rates so much.
Just to compensate.
Just to compensate them to keep them. So the only way I could cheapen it up was to increase production.
Yeah.
So I had to increase production by like 10 to 15% on everything I was bidding, and we start getting work coming in. Well, once we start getting work coming in, I set all the guys down. I said, look, y'all wanted the raises. We gave them to you. We couldn't pick up work, so I had to increase production. So in return, I need y'all to physically increase production on site. If not, if we can't turn over the same profit we're accustomed to, we're going to pull those raises back. We're going to start taking money away from you because in today's market, we've got a certain price that we've got to be in. I can only mark my materials up so much. I can only mark my labor up so much and my equipment and fuel. I'm like, everything else revolves around your labor prices. So that's what got the big jump. And so we're going to reel it back.
It's almost like a interesting concept though. Like if you were having a conversation with the employee and you said like, hey, it's time for your annual review. It was like, we'd like to give you a raise, but we know we're going to have to compensate for this somehow. Like we're already going to compensate for inflation, like because we feel that's our obligation.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you can produce at a significantly higher rate than you are, and you'd like to receive the monetary benefits of that, let's work it on agreement here. And if you tell me that you can increase your individual production by 15%, we can talk about giving a 10-12% raise.
Yeah.
That might be an interesting strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, you'd have to have some type of check-in to say, like, are they actually meeting what they said, right?
Sure.
And then reevaluate during the next period and say, like, we talked about raising your pay grade, and I'm not seeing an increase in production, or actually you've exceeded that, so maybe we could talk about recalibrating it again.
But in similar situations, what we do is like if we get to a point where we're labor bound and can't really give any more raises, we still push for greater production, and in return, I've got X amount of hours in there for labor. And I may have 5,000 hours, man hours.
Yeah.
If you can come in at 4,000, we're going to take that money that you saved, and then we're going to divvy it up and give you an incentive
Give you a bonus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bonus.
We
Yeah.
talked about bonuses in the past. Yeah.
And
That's
so-
another way to do it.
That's another way to do it, yeah. And so they get to the point where they realize, like, if I'm not performing, when this job is done, I'm not going to get that bonus because I didn't perform like I should have. So that's really worked well for us over the last couple of years. Our guys have gotten, some really nice incentive bonuses. And it helps you out, come evaluation time to where you don't have to give those big leaps
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
raises. You know, you can give a moderate cost of living raise and give those incentive bonuses, and everybody's a win-win for everybody.
Everybody's happy. Yeah.
You know, the company's making money because you came in, you know, with less production hours than what was estimated on the project. You get a nice check. All the guys below you get a nice check. Company gets a nice check.
Right.
So it's a win-win for everyone.
Works for everybody. And turnover costs money too.
Yeah.
So, you know,
It does.
If you can, you know, balance that out and or equal it out in the end, it's certainly the best approach.
Well, and it incentivizes team cohesion too, right?
That's it.
It's like,
Yep.
you know, if somebody on the team's not or they're slacking and not living up to their end of the bargain, it's like, hey, you're going to impact the bonus on this.
Yeah.
Like,
It becomes apparent to everyone.
to everyone.
And,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's another, you know,
Accountability. Yeah.
there's another situation too that we can talk about on another episode. But
Yeah. Well, hold that thought.
well, yeah, okay.
Hold that thought, Jeff. Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, look, we're going to wrap it. That's good
Okay.
stuff.
All right.
Good to know. So,
Thank you guys.
well, thank you. Yes. Yes. We'll close us out, Jeff.
Just
I
one
just
thing.
jumped in front of you.
No, you're
I'm
good,
sorry.
buddy. Just gonna say thank you guys for joining in, and like Chris said earlier, you know, y'all like and share our videos, and please comment, tell us what you do like, what you don't like, anything you're interested in or want to hear about. If we don't know it, we'll try to find out and get you the best answers we can. But join in for our future episodes, and we just thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
See you
Check us
next
out.
time.
Yeah. ProfitDig.com.
Right.